do have CBS News contributor and Republican pollster Frank Luntz, CBS News correspondent Juliana Goldman as well.
And I noticed you threw in Republican pollster, and it used to be that I would fight with the word Republican. This morning, I'm fighting with the word pollster. That's an evil thing for you to do.
Good luck to you, Frank. I'm going to ask you what you and everybody else got wrong in just a moment, but I do want to ask you about your tweet.
Yes.
About the moment when Donald Trump did speak and deliver that speech. Well received, I think, in most corners. But you wrote, his audience could not be receiving it any better. What's the audience? Who's that audience that you speak to?
The audience are the people who just one day before were screaming, "Lock her up, lock her up," or "CNN sucks, CNN sucks." This was an audience that wanted to let the world know what they were angry about. And last night, his audience wanted the world to know what they were supporting and why they were supporting it. It was the most positive 15 minutes for Donald Trump in the entire campaign, and that includes the conventions, because it was all about reaching across the aisle. It was all about unity, about empathy, even compassion. And it's the opposite of what Trump's message was. If this stays his message over the coming weeks, watch what happens. You actually will get people starting to believe in Trump as someone who can govern. Because up until last night, that's not what we thought.
When it comes to governing, Juliana, a lot of eyes are going to be on Congress. There was a lot of talk and analysis ahead of the game about whether Trump would be a drag on down-ballot Republicans. It looks like he might have been exactly the opposite.
I mean, this was one of the other huge surprises of the night, is that Democrats were not able to take control of the Senate. And even Republicans heading into last night were saying, by any measure, we should be losing every single one of these tough toss-up races. The Access Hollywood tape was the game changer working against us. And, you know, Republicans, that didn't end up happening. Republicans in tough re-election battles were able to ride the same waves that Donald Trump rode into the White House. Now, again, what is Washington going to look like? That is the big question mark that everyone's trying to figure out today. I think a lot of Republicans in the Senate and the House are also trying to figure out what that's going to look like. What is the relationship between Paul Ryan and Donald Trump? And that hasn't really been smooth sailing up until now. What's the relationship between Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell? But regardless, Republicans are waking up this morning a significantly emboldened majority.
And Paul Ryan is a policy wonk, and Donald Trump is not. Paul Ryan is very steady, and Donald Trump is not. And so you've got a personality clash as well as a policy clash. So now the question becomes, if Trump says, I'm against trade, I'm still against trade, does Paul Ryan follow? And we know he disagrees. If Trump says, I'm building a wall and I'm going to change immigration policy, does Paul Ryan follow? Nobody knows that.
But Donald Trump has also said, we're going to instantly repeal Obamacare. And Paul Ryan can say, OK, here you go. I've got one written for you.
Then there's a question of, can they replace it with something?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. I also wondered, Frank, everybody missed so much, it would appear here. But also, there were so many different numbers that everybody seemed to be relying on, all of us, to forecast what we might see. But when you see a number that change was the most important thing, this idea of change, however ineffable that might be, that 83% of people pointed to that. At some point, you know, I compared it earlier today to a pyramid. Something has to sit on top. There has to be one thing in the end that's more important to you than anything else. It would seem that all the other unfavorables were forgiven because change had to happen.
The amazing thing is that Donald Trump had a higher unfavorability rating than Hillary Clinton all the way through the campaign. Hers was unprecedented for a Democrat. Trump was unprecedented for everybody. But at the end, their unfavorability numbers were the same. I do think the Comey investigation had an impact, because I believe that the public saw that this was going to be an ongoing process, month after month, year after year, and they simply didn't want this again. And the last thing is that Trump people turned out. These are people who may not have been involved in the political process. I got into a cab last night in New York City to head home. The driver did not want to tell me who he was voting for, and I had to push and push. Finally, he said to me, Trump. And I said, why were you so afraid to tell me? He said, I did not want to be judged. And there are millions of people just like that who know the weaknesses of Donald Trump, but chose him anyway because they thought that it was better than the weaknesses of Hillary Clinton.
Frank, I thought it was also fascinating what you were pointing out before is that he might have had higher unfavorability ratings, but she had higher ratings against her when it came to being honest and trustworthy. And so it's as if voters said, we're going to pick the devil we don't know versus the devil we do know.
And and I think this is important, issues. The issues did not matter in this campaign. It was all about character. It was about persona rather than policy. We haven't seen an election like that, but I want to be clear. It was all about persona. The people making up their minds in the last 8 weeks chose Trump over Clinton, not because they loved him, but because they really disliked her.
Juliana, on Capitol Hill, what's the sense, and Frank mentioned it, when Jim Comey sent the letter 10 days out, and then reiterated a little over a week later that, okay, no, we will not be reopening this investigation. And we talked to all manner of experts who believed, while it might not have an impact on Hillary Clinton's chances, that perhaps if you looked for a place where it would hurt, it was those down ballot races. Is the sense that perhaps if there are a lot of other reasons Hillary Clinton lost, that particularly was why all these candidates were suddenly running stronger than they thought?
Well, look, I think what the initial Comey letter allowed for these down ballot Republicans to do is to change. They got to go on offense instead of defense to move the conversation away from Donald Trump, the Access Hollywood tape, and to make this argument that they needed to be reelected to be a check on a Hillary Clinton presidency. Again, just to show you how surprising the whole night is that Republicans were fashioning an argument assuming that Hillary Clinton would become president. I was in Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago and I spoke to Senator Pat Toomey, who, by the way, finally last night said that he voted for Donald Trump after refusing to say where he was, after Pat Toomey looked like he was winning and after Donald Trump looked like he was winning too, I might add. But I asked him, look, by making this check and balance argument, aren't you saying that Hillary Clinton's going to be president? And he said, well, she's in the lead right now. That's the way it's looking. So, they just had this all.
And almost 50 million early votes were cast during that time, right, that potential reinvestigation loomed.
The other piece that we were talking about, and I interviewed you on this, Frank, many moons ago for The Atlantic, was the chasm that seemed to be opening up between men and women, and particularly men and women who were married to each other, but that does not seem to have been borne out, does it?
It was borne out. But Trump simply did better among men than Hillary Clinton did among women.
But he won white women.
But he didn't win non-white men. He did not win. He's got a problem. And this country is a problem. Because not only have we chosen sides by gender, but we've chosen it by income, we've chosen it by education, we've chosen it by race. And I think that you're seeing this continued divide that is actually expanding. And who's going to be the person who spans that divide? And that's why I liked his speech so much last night. I mean, it was late. We all were tired. We're still watching it. Nobody had gone home at this point. Nobody had any sleep. And people walked away going, wow, I hear that. I get that. I like that. They don't necessarily believe it's going to happen. But boy, that's exactly what they want to happen.
The first 100 days then, Juliana, we talked about, admittedly, how Hillary Clinton might effectively govern in something that did not come to pass. Now that he has congressional majorities, and now that his first big bit of business will be nominating a Supreme Court justice, what's that going to look like, and can we bid a fond farewell to Merrick Garland?
Yeah, I mean, the Merrick Garland nomination is essentially dead in the water right now. We had gamed out all sorts of scenarios if Democrats were to have retaken the Senate, but right now, the next Supreme Court justice who's going to be nominated is going to be nominated by Donald Trump. He has said that he would nominate justices who would overturn Roe versus Wade. And he has put a list, I think, out of 20 some potential nominees, a mix of federal appeals court judges, all essentially a rock star list of conservative names, but appealing to the more conservative wing of the Republican Party.
For someone like Harry Reid, who is outgoing, who actually managed to have a Democrat hold on to that Nevada Senate seat, this must be bittersweet for Democrats in the Senate who are looking towards Chuck Schumer to potentially be majority leader.
It's not bittersweet.
More bitter than sweet.
And I think it's only bitter.
Yeah.
Frank Luntz, Juliana Goldman. Again, part of the network coverage last night, so really this is just nighttime for you with sun.
Your viewers don't realize, but there's actually a bed under there, and I'm not going
It's a trundle.
Crawl back under.
It's a trundle.
Crawl back under. We appreciate it. Thanks to you both.
Thanks, you guys.